Hey guys, thanks for joining us. This is a big one. We've got the big man with us in this month's interview, Prime Minister John Key. There's a bit of a story as to how we got the interview with John Key, but ask me and Stephen later on once you see us. Really, we enjoyed it. It's all around leadership and how he got to be where he is, which is Prime Minister. The interview went for a lot longer than we thought it was going to go for. He gave us a lot more time. That's why we've had to cut the interview into 3 different sections, and we had to keep Mark Weldon, who was going to have a meeting with Prime Minister, waiting in the waiting room for 25 minutes before we finished. But really good, we really enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy it, and here's the first segment right now.
Yeah, well, welcome everybody to the Inner Circle. Delighted to be with the leader of our great country, and appreciate your time, John. It's a light-hearted look at leadership. Nothing light-hearted in my view about leadership. It's one of the best and one of the worst positions. The opportunity today to talk to John about probably when you first set your sights on being the leader of this country, and if you did set your sights, I won't say it's by default like some of the other leaders around the sporting field gets it, but we're just going to pause through a few questions with John. Richard's going to take the lead. Richard's not a great interviewer, so when the questions die out, I'll just come in and add a bit of credibility about it, as usual. So Richard's got the lead.
Okay.
I'm in your tender hands. Be gentle with me.
So to speak. Okay. Well, when you finish your prime ministerial career, what do you want to look back and say you've achieved and done? Start from the end point.
Yeah, I think it's to make a difference in things that I think are important, and in that regard, economically, I think New Zealand doesn't do as well as it could. And when you boil all that down, that means that people have a bit more cash and deliver on the things that they want, whether it's a better retirement or greater opportunities. So it's actually, the first thing is that. The second thing for me, it would be around some things I'm specifically interested in, young people. So I think we're running a whole lot of programs and doing things to advance young people, or at the moment the sort of war on P, which I think is we're actually winning to a certain degree. Be cautious declaring victory too early on that sort of topic. I think the last thing is just making sure that you came away with your sort of values and principles intact, and you were who you are, because I think Parliament's the sort of place that can destroy you. It's quite inward focusing and it's negative. There's a lot of negative, a lot of focus on really stupid things that are personal and negative. So for me, I don't want to engage in that stuff. I want to stay where I am. Right,
it's one thing we were discussing before we came in here. You're not a career politician.
No.
You probably don't need the salary.
No.
So, from what I'm hearing, it's about the reason you're in it is you want to make a difference and make a contribution.
Yeah, and I believe I can. I think that there's, like any leadership, there's got to be a combination of not only that you are doing it, but you believe you can do it.
Yeah.
And, if you don't believe in yourself, well, no one else is going to believe in you.
Yeah. So okay, so those things are the things that drive you about making a difference and things like that. Have you had to change who you are to, because we've often talked about cricket, if you want to play international cricket, you've got to start thinking like an international cricketer, and there's a big, it's one thing having the skills, but you've also got to have the mindset. Did you have to go through a process where you almost recondition yourself to think like a Prime Minister?
A little bit. I'll tell you where that comes in. I think in terms of your personality and who you are, it's really dangerous if you try and pretend that you're someone that you're not. And when I was following on from Clark, who has her own style and her own way of doing things, and love or hate it, but she's a different person to me, and there was a period of time where I thought, maybe I should try and emulate more of that, and eventually I thought, look, you'll be a fraud and you'll look like a fake, and no one's going to believe you. So I better have my own style and apply that on the way that I think things will work. What does change though is that as a Prime Minister you have a variety of different responsibilities. So it's, while I say we have a strong economic focus, there's a million other things that we have to worry about. Secondly, sometimes you actually got to stand up for what you think is right, and even if people can't quite understand why you're doing it at the time. And the third thing is you have to think really strategically, where are things going to go, what's going to end up looking like by the time you get to the end of it. And if you're not 2 steps ahead of the game, then you're in serious trouble in this job, because sometimes you can't deploy those resources quick enough if you haven't thought about it by then. And I think it's true in sport. If you haven't thought all that stuff through, it's way too late when you're out on the pitch.
So how then, into that, do you control your energy levels and your insomnia to be so good? Because you've got to have, to me, you've got this portfolio of the country, whereas I had bowling plans and opposition to play with. I can go to sleep by 12. I might wake up a couple of nights if I've got trouble during a test, but how do you manage your energies and sleep?
I have lots of energy. I mean, I'm lucky. I've got quite a happy-go-lucky personality. So things don't, if something's not going well, like anyone, you get a bit grizzly about it. But I don't sit with it for a long time, and I don't hold grudges. Right. That's a big positive, because you've got to let the bad stuff go sometimes and accept that it'll be like that. And I always say to people, if you want perfection, you're looking in the wrong place in politics, because we have 120 MPs who live their life under the spotlight, who are not perfect individuals and will make mistakes. And then outside of all of that, you've got a million moving parts that you can't all control. I mean, there's no getting away from the one difference from being Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition. It's just the sheer number of hours. I mean, one bit that would be great about Christmas is just getting some sleep. Because I pretty much leave here at 1 o'clock in the morning and I get up at 6. So that's sort of normal. And like anyone, you can survive, and sometimes it's less sleep than that. And I can survive on less sleep, but you don't feel really good if you don't have that. And the run-up to becoming Prime Minister that year, I was doing a bit more exercise. I mean, it wasn't silly stuff, but it was half an hour run type of thing. And for the first 9 months or 10 months in the job, I've been bloody hopeless. And I've just started getting back, going to the gym and trying to do a little bit of stuff. And it's not international.
Biceps.
All that sort. All of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Christmas holidays.
In fact, my wife has got a kickboxing instructor who, it's great. I pretend that he's a certain name I can't use, and I just try and go after him. It's great. It's very
give us a name.
It's very stress relieving. Well, I call him Phil just for the sake of it, but it's all very good stress relieving stuff. So I don't mind. I find that I don't
exercise.
Doesn't help my weight, which is not exactly going down, but it makes me feel better.
Yep.
It's more for mental stress release, I think. Whereas it's a bit probably funny when you're a sportsman, because your whole, by definition, what you're doing is exercise, so that's maybe not the release. I don't know.
So
my exercise regimes, because I used to stand at first slip.
Yeah.
So I always put a case on the table for first slip training, and stand in the park for 8 days. But it's not really possible. Didn't wash.
No. There you go.
You mentioned sort of the exercise for mental sort of conditioning. What are the biggest internal obstacles, within yourself you've had to overcome since you've been Prime Minister?
Well, I think there's a really fine balance between listening to people and staying engaged and taking on board what people say, and having enough mental strength and perseverance to stick with what you believe in. Because what happens in politics is, it doesn't matter what you say, a third of people will disagree with you as a starting point, and that might be a good starting point. Sometimes it's more. And if you don't have that mental conviction, it's all going to go to custard, because if you don't believe in it, they sure as hell never will. So I think the first thing is just realising that's important. But on the other side of the coin, if you stop listening, because you say, well, anyone who says something bad about me is just opposed to me, then you get really arrogant.
Yes.
And boy, it's a really fine line, I think. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is trying to stay in touch with everyday New Zealanders. So I do lots of things that I don't have to do, but I do it because I want to stay engaged with people, and I like people, so it helps me, and it helps. I go and talk back a lot, and I just, and it's not, I'm not saying they're the answer to everything, but even if I go and then cop it, sometimes at least I get a sense of what's sort of going on. Mm. But just engaging with people, just get out there and talk to people and stop and.
Thanks for watching that latest interview on leadership and performance. Hope you really enjoyed it. If you want to receive notification every time we produce a new one, giving you new content on leadership and tips on performance, then there's a couple of things you can do. You can go to the website www.digitalpublications.co.nz, or you can go to the front page of the ebook that you've got this interview in, and it says refer a friend, and you can either click on that button and send it to a friend, or you can send it to yourself, and you'll get an email link which will take you straight to the sign up page to receive more of these. And then you'll just get, every time a new one comes out, you'll be sent a little email telling you, hey, click on the button and you can get your latest email on leadership and performance. So do that now, and thanks for listening.